Well, the bye rounds are finally finished, and there's a bit to reflect over the last few weeks. A lot of interesting things have happened over the last few weeks. Our ladder leader in Geelong has once again been defeated by the bye, and the top 8 is still looking to take shape for the rest of the year. In fact, some of the teams on the bottom of the ladder seem to be winning a fair few games and could threaten to actually make the 8 come the end of the year, but we will get to that all in time. For now, this is our reaction in retrospect to the bye rounds. My name is Ryan, and here we go. So the bye rounds were quite an interesting time for all of the teams in the entire competition, except for probably Carlton. They were pretty expected to be dismal, and they were, so, you know. But a lot of stuff happened over the bye rounds. A lot of injuries to players, some suspensions, interestingly enough, came out over those weekends as well. And yeah, it's done a lot to actually shake up what we thought before the bye heading into the latter half of the season. So before we go any further, let's have a look at the ladder as it stands now that everyone's played the same amount of games. And hang on, this is pulled from the AFL website directly, and Didn't they just suspend a player for 10 games for betting? What? Why? So yeah, the biggest thing to come out of the bye rounds is very clearly Jaden Stevenson's 10-week ban. It's 22 weeks suspended, 10 weeks that he is serving at the moment. Now, before you ask, because it is a little known fact that if you are suspended as a player for 16 matches in the AFL system, you are banned for life. However, that only applies to bans that are dished out by the tribunal and not the ethics committee, like what has happened with Jaden Stevenson's case. Now, rightly so, in my opinion, the AFL has a crackdown on players who bet on AFL matches, even if it's a match that doesn't have anything to correlate with their team. It's not just players, it's coaches, it's pretty much anyone within a football department, which I am wholeheartedly agree with. However, what I don't agree with is then the AFL's official website, on literally every single ad space that they have, advertising betting campaigns. It sends a really contradictory message to the fans, to the public, that they want to crack down on gambling within the code. But here, have some gambling because we get some money out of it. It'd be like if the AFL was to go back to the Essendon saga and say, we don't want to have banned substances in our game, but advertise all over their website that they're selling banned substances to the general public and stuff because they're not in a professional capacity. It kind of reeks of hypocrisy, so I just wanted to point that out there. That's obviously the biggest thing to come out of the bye rounds. However, as I said off the top, the top 8 is definitely taking shape. Richmond have taken a huge hit to their finals chances. They've dropped out of the 8. They're actually in 9th at the moment, which, can I just say for a second, is hilarious. And they may stay there for the rest of the season because they're only sitting on 92.8% or something of the sort. And it's not looking good for Richmond to come back and sort of, stamp their authority after a pretty dismal outing in the finals last year. It's kind of questions their credibility with regards to can they go again after this. Geelong went down over the weekend as well. It's their second loss for the year, which is actually still quite good. However, it does ring just some small alarm bells for them because Port didn't look overly that impressive on the weekend either, but they still got up and won. It's nice to know that Geelong, who seemed to have no weaknesses and just seemed completely unbeatable, have been kind of just brought down a peg as well. Collingwood take their chances, whereas West Coast didn't, and they actually go a game clear in second and close the gap to Geelong as well. So they're outright second at the moment, and then GWS and West Coast make up the rest of the top four, a game clear from 5th position as well. So the top four is actually looking relatively settled right now, and I don't think it's going to change for the rest of the year. Maybe they'll have some positional changes within the top four, but I think that's your top four for the home and away season of 2019, guys. So get used to seeing those names up there. It's the bottom four of the top 8 that really sort of had a bit of restructuring. I'm pretty sure they're the same teams that were in there last week, but compared to the start of the bye, they've changed up a bit. Richmond's dropped out, and that's probably about it. Maybe Hawthorn dropped out in that period of time as well. Freo have dropped down quite considerably, actually. They were sitting in 5th spots. Now they're back down to 8th. Adelaide are on a roll. They're up to 5th, and Port Adelaide are coming up along as well. And Brisbane are kind of hit and miss. They're kind of the bogey side of the top 8 at the moment. I think they can be really good or really poor. Their best is definitely very good, but their worst is definitely very bad as well. So they're still bridging that consistency gap, and it's really good to see their development. I do still think they will make top 8, but I think potentially this could be your top 8 for the rest of the year. I do think maybe Sydney might be the only change to come in, and maybe Fremantle come out only because of their injuries to their list. So they are getting absolutely ravished with injuries to their key position players in particular that are not standing up to the regs of the AFL code, unfortunately. But that's the top 8 at the moment, and it's looking rather settled coming out the end of the byes. But there are some teams below them. Teams like Sydney and Melbourne in particular. Even the Bulldogs looked pretty sharp against Collingwood over the weekend. That I wouldn't count out completely. For any of those teams that are playing against them in the back half of the year, I would be very, very worried about being knocked off against those teams, as they seem to be finding a little bit better form, specifically Sydney as well. Sydney are definitely going to shake up the 8 and may actually come back and make the top 8 for, I think, the 11th season in a row, which will be absolutely mental, because I think if they do make the 8 this year, that will stay in the top 8 for the next 5 years. Their list is just on the teetering side of turning over to launch again, sort of thing. So bye rounds do consistently shake things up. Of course, for you fantasy players out there, they are horrifically bad. I think I only fielded a full team on my field of fantasy for one of those weeks, and yet still somehow went up in ranking, so I don't understand how that works. Yeah, so the back end of the year is very interesting, it seems like. Now, I will be doing the power rankings next week. I want to come back and do the power rankings after a full weekend of footy, as opposed to coming off of the byes. But I did want to sort of react kind of thing over the, for the whole bye rounds per se, because I haven't done one of these in a few weeks because we've been doing the mid-season reviews, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. We quite thoroughly enjoyed and found it quite interesting to go through and research some of the teams and some of their stats and where they were good and where they were poor, and some of the bottom teams are really good statistically, but they're just not converting their chances so much, which is a very interesting intake on things, considering this is probably the first year that something like that has happened, and I wonder whether the new rules have sort of affected that a bit. There's no doubt that they have, but and to what capacity has that had an effect on it? It's a really interesting question, I think. So I'll let you ponder on that, and I'll probably ponder on that a bit more anyway. So as for footy rivals this week, we don't know whether we're going to be doing a watch party or not. It's probably going to happen, but I'm not going to bank my hat on that. We will be doing, at the very least, if we don't do the watch party, we will be doing our normal footy rivals program. So we will still have that. It's just a matter of what it is that we're actually going to be bringing to you, because it's an earlier game which affects our schedules a bit more. So I hope you understand that. And yeah, things resume as normal for the channel with the uploads and everything. Hopefully we get a bit more things coming out. We will be getting Joel's Dark Days of Hawthorn out this week. Make sure you stay tuned for that, because his Port Adelaide one was actually very good and very well done, and his Hawthorn one, I've had it sitting here for about a month and a half ready to go. I just haven't had a chance to be able to actually get it out to you guys. It is actually looking quite well done and quite well researched as well. So if you want to know about Hawthorn's Dark Days, make sure you stay tuned to the channel, because that will be uploading in the next couple of days as well. Yeah. 2019 AFL season is looking to be a good one. It's going to be a memorable one, and I can tell you what, even though Melbourne themselves have had a poor year, they're only 3 games outside the 8 with another, 9 games to go for the season, so they are still capable of making finals if they get their act together, and I do think Sydney will be the only team to come into the 8 for Fremantle. So I think we've got our top 8 set, locked and loaded. You can quote me on that at the end of the year if you'd like to. Guys, if you like the video, make sure you do leave a big thumbs up down below, and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell to receive notifications when we do come out with new content, especially when we do the Footy Rivals show on the Thursday. Also, do make sure that you join the Discord. Link will be in the description below. We do enjoy talking about footy throughout the week. I wish I could be there during matches and stuff like that, but unfortunately time doesn't allow me to do so, because there is some absolutely fantastic banter that goes into the Discord during match days, especially when Justin and I have our certainties on the line with some games. It gets nerve-wracking. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you next time. As always, this has been your AFL Access.